So, again, with proper motivation and conduct, we have to start this session. So in the beginning, if you remember on page 30, I believe, you are requesting to turn the wheel of Dharma. And I am also requesting my teachers to turn the wheel of Dharma. Turning the wheel of Dharma doesn't really have to be someone talking about the Dharma. Dharma is the wheel. What does a wheel do is that it takes things from one place to another. So when we have Dharma, it takes us from samsara to nirvana. So that's the whole sort of reason behind why we say turning the wheel, meaning the Buddha, our teachers, take our mind from mundane phenomena and deliver us to nirvana, at least conceptually too. Hence, the actual Dharma is not the words. Actual Dharma is not the terms. Actual Dharma is the meaning. Actual Dharma is, for example, like impermanence. Actual Dharma is the two truths, ultimate and relative. Actual Dharma is the renunciation that we have, compassion, devotion, discipline, generosity. These are the actual Dharma. These are the actual wheel that takes us where we want to go, not the words. The words are symbolic. Words are talking about these things, but not the actual Dharma. So as our teacher, Tsongsa Khyentse Rinpoche, says again and again, to not confuse the words of Dharma as the Dharma, and then speaker just speaks some dry words, and listener just listens to some dry words, and then it's like, oh, the Dharma is done. Not like that at all. Transformation has to happen. So, at all times, you should really wish for the wheel of Dharma to be turned within you. And for that, someone doesn't have to be sitting in front of you and talking to you all the time. A sight of Buddha under the Bodhi tree or just the image of it can very well do that. Actually, most of the time, for myself, that really functions much better than a lot of words. Just the image of this Indian man, so to speak, how to say, who have really reached the pinnacle of wisdom and who have really abandoned all afflictions and obscurations that, to imagine that, the stark contrast between the magnificence of his mind and the simplicity of his surrounding is something very, I'm really attached to that image, that Shakyamuni just sitting peacefully under the Bodhi tree. Something like this can really turn the wheel of Dharma within us. So, just wanted to say this. Motivation, as I sort of mentioned yesterday, that we really have to look into our own mind. That's the only way. So many things, most of the things in our life we do without proper awareness. And we have to make sure that this too is not just one of them. And you think about it, actually, you have met so many teachers, so many great beings, I'm sure. Some of you have been practicing Dharma for 10, 20, 30 years. Honestly, look into yourself and think, if you would have practiced genuinely, what would have happened? And where are you now? Like this. It's simple like that, very simple. But it does is that it really shows us where our fault lies. Just as Tulku Rinpoche says, someone whose head is slowly rotting, they never smell it. We never, because it's normal. Only when you analyze do you find it like, oh, is it painful if I touch something like this? Or else we will never realize. And the whole life, our whole life is spent in a very sort of, superficial, very surface. Go to the temple, make offering, do the puja, and then go home like this, do some retreat. Never really asking yourself, why am I doing this, So this type of inquisitiveness, like, a little bit of analytical mind one must have, no matter what. So, traditionally, motivation should be, of course, to at least to become a better person, a better human being, And actually that would be a wrong motivation, but a motivation nevertheless to at least to become more tolerable, to understand the Dharma better. That should be the motivation. It's the lowest bar. Because this doesn't really need you to have genuine renunciation. And it will not, with this type of motivation, you can listen to the Dharma and it definitely can function. But it's not a Dharma practice. You are still not a Dharma practitioner. So to become a Dharma practitioner, then again, the lowest motivation should be, we should have done a lot of analysis of our own mind, and there should be a certain tiredness towards the habits of the mind, especially for no reason and no reason whatsoever. As Shantideva says in Ways of Bodhisattva, he's talking to his mind. He says, why do you cling as a self? Why must you he's talking to his mind, why must you be attached to a body? Why must you have this idea of a self? And actually that's what it is at the end of the day. It's an idea. And nevertheless, a very sort of strong, persistent idea, just this idea of self. And it is really governing, ruling everything that we do. With this type of mentality, everything can be turned into samsara, even the words of the Buddha, even the form of the Buddha. There are people who who met the Buddha, and rather than getting benefit from meeting such a perfect being, they actually things become worse for them. So they go to lower realms and so on and so forth. So we humans, we are capable of turning anything into something negative, no matter what you do. So then there should be, some of us who are really a little bit tired and that, this wish to really break free from this sort of this idea of seeing things as one, as permanent, as self. Yeah. So that's, to become a Dharma practitioner, that is the lowest motivation that one must have. Then on top of that, of course, you not only have this type of motivation, but you also then look around. First, you look at the people that you truly love, your parents or your friends and family. That even the thought of any sort of small harm to them is painful. To even imagine them in a very difficult situation, ugly situation, just the imagination itself brings, makes you panic. So now you have to think, as so long we are alive together, I can, do whatever I can. But first of all, that is not possible. You cannot protect somebody while they're alive every day, all the time. That's not going to happen. And especially the moment the phenomena of death occurs, which has to occur, death is basically our body running, just exhausting, running out of, not being able to function anymore. And that has to happen. We are really like toy cars, I don't know if you guys are familiar with those. I grew up with toy cars that, that have a key and you do like 5-6 times and then you put on the ground and it runs. It cannot run all the time. It can only go so far. And that's what we are. The key has been turned, the car is running, and it has to stop. Some of us has to stop first. In this room too, one of us is first in the line. Just how it is. There's no way avoiding this. Then to really think about the darkness, the mysterious abyss of death and what will happen afterwards. And if this is my loved, son or daughter or father, mother, will continue to exist, who will protect them now? How will you reach? You cannot even give them one grain of rice. You cannot one drop of water, you cannot give to them. In all practicality, very difficult. We believe after people die, we do pujas, and we like to believe that it helps them. You cannot see it though. This type of ideas should disturb a practitioner who thinks in a little bit broader sense, not just about yourself and what you want to accomplish for you, but for others. Then the only sort of logical way is to find actual cure of samsara and make aspirations from now on that you will deliver this cure to your loved one, no matter where they're born, that you will even if they're born in the deepest on the deepest ground in an ocean, that you will somehow get there and then deliver the message of truth, so to speak. Such type of determination has to be there. And Dzongsa Khyentse which says, not only that, a bodhisattva determination is so that bodhisattva looks at a being And Bodhisattva makes the aspiration that may I find the cure, and then may I go to this being, come back to this being again. And may I wait, even if I have to wait for 100 years, 1,000 years, lifetimes, for a window of opportunity. And even if I will get only 10 minutes time to talk about, Dharma to this being, sort of throughout this being's existence of thousands of lifetimes, even if there's only 10 minutes of window where this being is going to be receptive, the Bodhisattva is willing to wait. Now that type of motivation is really befitting a follower of Buddha. Because what does follower of Buddha mean? Follower meaning someone who does whatever the Buddha did, and this is what the Buddha did. So, to have this motivation, I forgot. With this, all the conduct, like I said before, motivation is our real guru. The real teacher is the motivation. Especially, this is a sutra setup. Even the only reason why we have good guru, big Guru Rinpoche Thangka is because we don't have big Shakyamuni Thangka. That's all. And well, Padmasambhava himself, he said, in the pure realms, I am Amitabha, and on the Vajrasana, I am Shakyamuni. So I like to believe that. And even though the form is Padmasambhava, that's actually Shakyamuni. So in this type of sutra setup, of course the teacher is important. We're not saying the teacher is not important, like external teacher, Then we should have whatever, respect and all that. But the main teacher in the sutra is your own bodhicitta. Same goes in the Vinaya. When Buddha is about to pass away, people ask him, what do we do? Who is going to be our teacher? He could have said, because we don't talk about these things. Actually, it's kind of embarrassing, and we should. When Buddha passed away, he gave his Dharma to Kasyapa. When Kasyapa passed away, he gave his Dharmas to Ananda. Like this, there were 7 throne holders after Buddha. Funnily, we don't talk about it, and that's not good, actually. And Buddha could have said, when he was about to pass away, oh yeah, when I die, you should depend on Kasyapa, but he didn't. He said, when I die, you should depend on Vinaya for the monks and nuns. You should depend on the Vinaya. Vinaya is your teacher. Always depend on Vinaya. What does Vinaya teach? Vinaya teach all these that we've been talking about. Vinaya means discipline. Discipline has to do with renunciation. Discipline has to do with, for example, discipline of Mahayana is bodhicitta. Discipline of Theravada, for example, is renunciation. Just simple as that. So, this should guide all of our action. Well, we are trying to talk about Vipassana here, which would have been utterly useless if we don't have proper motivation. It is completely useless. So that's why I spent some time, and I will spend more time on it, hopefully. Vipassana has to do with seeing something extra. So it has this, from the word itself, you can taste sort of emptiness. You can kind of, since we are all familiar with the concept of emptiness and ultimate truth or selflessness, we kind of know what Vipassana means. I apologize. I will not be going through the very traditional. Actually, I will, but not the way we usually. Usually, Vipassana is taught in the Mahayana text, but it will all be from the teachings of Buddha. This much I can assure you. Although it is about getting to the emptiness, I see that there are two ways of getting to the emptiness: talking about the emptiness directly, and then seeing the emptiness through by depending upon relative truth. And the previous one, for example, in Heart Sutra, no eyes, no nose, no tongue, and like that, no form, and until no Buddha. I really hesitate to talk about to others because I myself it's difficult for me to grasp this. I get to a strange state mentally where there's like an empty space. I don't like it. And I'm afraid that this is exactly what we will do if we are not skillful enough in delivering these sutras. Apologize. One of the downfall of Bodhisattva is teaching emptiness to someone who is not ready to listen to emptiness. So, as Aryadeva says, emptiness is like a teaching of emptiness, of selflessness, is like a very special skill of how to catch a poisonous snake. And if not trained properly, there is a danger that it will sort of backfire. You try to catch the snake bites you. And he says this is exactly what will happen to most people. Not only that, there are so many signs actually that we have not, till now, we have not understood. I still cannot talk about you, like I said before. I cannot read your mind, but for myself, so many signs that teaches me that I have really not understood or comprehend the ultimate truth, because there's no external sign, there's no internal sign. First thing, you're supposed to cry. Have you ever cried when you had emptiness? When you're reading Prajnaparamita Sutra, did it make your hair stand on its end? Did you cry? Did you shiver? Like that. I met one monk who did that. I was a review teacher at Dzongsa, and I thought, wow, this guy has it. I never had, it actually makes me a little bit careless. The more I think about emptiness, the less I want to prostrate or make offering, the less I want to buy a statue or, make it beautiful. So understanding gone wrong. So then, on purpose, since I came to the West in a way for 4 years now, and even before that, I've been on purpose looking for methods and teachings about emptiness that is not direct as in the Heart Sutra. So this is, like I said before, those who have heard me talk before, you know these things. Maybe you haven't heard all of them together on one sitting, but parts and parts you have heard from many of the things that I have said. So the first one I really like is seeing the emptiness through the contemplation of impermanence. This, I must say, this makes my hair stand on its end. This really, well, we Tibetans say we never cry, so I should say that too. But this really you know, instills a belief in me that this is it. There's no doubt this is it. And no matter what I open, sutra, tantra, commentary, or whenever I listen to my teachers, it just gets more and more strong, this conviction that this is how you see emptiness. But before that, in one sutra where Katayana, a householder actually, he asks Buddha, okay, so you talked about ultimate truth, you talked about emptiness and so on. How do we see that? What is the one thing that we must do to see emptiness? In Shakyamuni, he could have said meditate, he could have said do this, that. He says devotion. Ultimate truth, he said, ultimate truth can only be seen through devotion. This is the longer, I will not go into it, but the more I think about it, what does he mean by devotion? It really opens so many layers actually of, which is the reason why I keep trying to go back to Shakyamuni, because who are you going to have devotion more than Shakyamuni Buddha? This is must. With a renunciation mind, you look at Shakyamuni, you generate devotion. Then everything easy, no problem. 100,000 years of Vipasanna, without devotion, and just few moments of Vipassana with devotion, maybe few moments more stronger. These few moments will have more impact on our mind. Just how it is. We have talked about samatha before, because you cannot talk about vipassana without samatha. Samatha, shamatha, or samatha, however you call it, calm abiding, is the ingredient that makes up vipassana. So we must have samatha. Without samatha, you cannot have vipassana. The best example is, I try to look at from the telescope. Sometimes Andreas tries to show me some planets, We have a big telescope here. But you cannot see anything unless it's stable, because it's so magnified. It's impossible to actually see the colors and the sort of the lines on the planetary objects. You really have to breathe slowly, and the stand should be exactly stable. Then you can see. A simple example like this. So the stable stand, as meaningless as it may seem to a novice, is the most important thing for an actual professional. Most important is the stable stand. It shouldn't move. If it moves, it destroys everything. It distorts the view, and it even gives you wrong information about the planet. So it must be stable. Exactly what we need with our mind. A distracted mind full of thoughts and ideas. Every day you have new things going on. You cannot see the ultimate truth. So seeing the ultimate truth means your mind has to have an ingredient, that the strength to go beyond ordinary, mundane conceptualizations, which we don't have now. Someone like me, I don't have. Honestly, my teachers, many of them, when we receive teachings and stuff, all kind of things have been tried on me. All kind of things. Some teachers whispered into my ears, literally whispered things into my ears. Some showed me empty hand, everything. Nothing happened till now. Why? There's no stable. No, what is it? Stability. First, even that is not there. So, you know, there could be explosion in the sky or whatever. You don't see it. So we talked about samatha before, and I requested that the participants. I'm sure you have listened to this before too. But you should also access the few talks we gave, and it's not long. And it's free, you know, so that if you access them. And if you haven't, please do. During the samatha, we focused mainly on sitting straight. Of all the object of meditation, we chose the body, the inner object of meditation. So by and by, when we practice today and tomorrow, we will use that technique. But I might not explain so much now. Like I said again, a certain desperation is needed though. You know, if you're like, oh, wake up, nice coffee, and maybe I should meditate today. And I'll go into the meadow and sit somewhere if there's no problem. Like this, you know, I'm not saying it will not help. It definitely help, but it's just, it's very slow. It's very slow. Desperation, like you should really, you know, it should bring you to tears when you look at your mind and like, why am I like this? Why is my mind so, you know, flicker? Actually, in a way, it's fleeting. You know, like really moving on to things all the time. It cannot even rest for one moment. Why does it have to be like this? You know, and think about the qualities of samatha. Think about the qualities of the samadhi. What happens when you have samadhi? What happens when you master samatha? And you think about the amount of time that has passed since you received the instruction and the lack of experience about these practices. And then they're really, until such a thing happens, very difficult to, you know, to actually succeed in spiritual endeavor. Very difficult. As much as we can say, like, oh, be happy, happily, everything will be fine. Most of the time, it's not. Most of the time, there has to be certain struggle inside. There has to be you should see the gap between where you want to go and where you are. And you should also see the lack of result after so many years, after so many masters. Some masters that we have met have passed away, the likes of whom we will never see again. Haven't you noticed these days? There's less and less and less great masters. You should look around. What happened to the West 30, 40 years ago? There were so many great masters, so many. Sakjas, Kajus, Nyingmas, Gelus, great Geshes, great Kempos, great Rinpoche zones. So they were really good. They were trained well. And now, very difficult, less and less and less. Desperation has to be there, especially when it comes to the ultimate truth. When you read, let's say, the Heart Sutra, and I'm talking about Vipassana here. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit distracted, but that's okay. When you read Heart Sutra, you should really sort of, be desperate. You should really in the Heart Sutra, I had to, my mother was not well once, so I had to read the entire volumes of Prajnaparamita. So there are 15 volumes. I think I read 14 volumes of it. So from beginning till almost the end, it's always like this. In the ultimate truth, this doesn't exist, that doesn't exist, that doesn't. Each volume has 600 pages, 800 pages like this, So 14 volumes of that. After that, my mind was, I was in a very strange, At the end of the 14th volume, the sutra tells a story. Just that. That's the only story in all of the 14 volumes. After maybe, I don't know, almost 10,000 pages, it reaches to a sutra, a teaching, a story about Saddha Rutita, Bodhisattva. Actually, it means always crying. And it's about a Bodhisattva who is looking for Prajnaparamita. I'm sure you have heard about it. Paltu Rinpoche mentions him in Words of My Perfect Teacher. When Milarepa was almost about to give up, he reads this sutra and he reads especially that story that makes him go back to Marpa. So where Saddha Rutita really is born with the strong conviction that there is something called Prajnaparamita, but nobody can teach it on this earth. Buddha taught Prajnaparamita to only special beings, not to ordinary humans. And there was just rumors there is such a thing. Nobody knew. And he day and night he prays and he cries and he gets instructions, just some voice from the sky saying, go in east direction, you will meet someone there. And he goes to east direction and he gets lost, he gets somewhere in the middle of desert, there's no food, no water, he's about to die. Again he prays, okay, now looks like I'm not going to meet a teacher this life, so as soon as I die, may I be born again. And again I set on this journey of looking for a teacher who will teach me Prajnaparamita. Like this really unimaginable courage that then life and death really is like, for Bodhisattva, it's like changing a car or changing a bike, so to speak, like really just a means of reaching to the Prajnaparamita, and whichever gets me there faster, that's okay, either this life or the next life. Finally, he reaches, I shouldn't be telling the whole story, that would be stupid, very long. Please read it. Finally, he reaches to a place, modern day Myanmar. That's the temple and everything is still there where the Bodhisattva was living. There was a great Bodhisattva. And he reaches there. Bodhisattva is in meditation. And they say, after some years, Bodhisattva will come out of his meditation, then we start teaching Prajnaparamita. So in between, he has to get money. He wants to make offering. He's a poor monk. So he looks around. He finds no job. Nobody wants to give him a job. Finally, he decides to sell himself. Finally, even that doesn't happen. And he decides to sell his own heart. He was willing to actually... How illogical is that? This is what Milarepa thinks. When Milarepa is reading it, he thinks, this man is willing to sell his heart. You take out your heart, you die. So you don't get the teaching actually, But the sort of the thirst for wisdom has now transcended all logic, and he's even willing to, Milarepa says, this man even willing to sell his heart. Compared to this, I have done nothing, so I should go back. So he goes back. This is In Prajnaparamita Sutras, only this, no other story, just this mention of this bodhisattva, I think it tells a very strong, it gives a very strong message that Prajnaparamita is really can only be seen through devotion. Again, like I said before, devotion can only be generated through a yearning. Only when you really realize you lack something, then you can have devotion. That's why it's a bit difficult for me to choose sometimes when sometimes some people, teachers try to be a bit new agey and say things like, relax, you're perfect the way you are, and stuff like that. That's not good. In a way, that is the highest form of teaching. And before that, the person should go through like 10,000 pages of teaching before to reach that point where you actually understand what it means that you are perfect the way you are. Because in a relative truth, we are not perfect the way we are. We are very faulty. You know that yourself. No one has to point that to you. So, what did I say? Yeah, I want to talk about the samatha based on impermanence. The teaching of impermanence, again, probably one of the greatest teaching of Shakyamuni. It's not like other schools or other philosophers did not talk about impermanence. They did, but then there was always something that they will hold back. The idea that everything is impermanent is really unique to Shakyamuni, I must say. And not just in a very crude sense of change, like building a house and then the house collapsing or somebody dying. Not like that. But to the core to the very fabric of all phenomena, when you go and look, then you find the impermanence. So this probably one of the most unique teaching of Shakyamuni. And he taught emptiness through impermanence in the beginning. He taught a dependent origination. That's how you see emptiness. To be more precise, he taught 12 links of dependent origination, which is basically the teaching of impermanence, and it teaches emptiness. Arahats meditate on 12 link dependent origination, and they see everything as a waterfall. They get first sort of experience they get, it is called water bhavchuta with nyam, like you get experience of, weird to say, like a waterfall, that you actually see everything. Yes, continuous flow of phenomena, one after another. Each being born, the moment it is born, it is dying. The same moment, it is also dying. It is the same moment of the birth, the death occurs. That's it, like that. And next moment, it is not there. And in its place, so to speak, something else takes, just as we look at a waterfall, and because of the similarity of the form, because of the similarity of texture and so on, we actually confuse it as a one thing. We call it a waterfall. This is a river, we call it. Actually, this, it is each sort of moment. If you are to put a very thin line across a waterfall, each moment, each water that passes through this line is different. Very different, completely. Origin is different. As an object, it is different from the ones that has already passed through that line and one that is yet to pass. Each moment is in its own object, so to speak. Each sort of line of water, its own object. Yet, to an untrained eye, when we look at it, we take it as a one thing. So, one of the sort of teachings of Vipassana is to see things not as complete, not as one. Things are, so, wait, let me put it, I think I wrote something down. Very simple example, like a flower, like a sunflower. We always think it's a one thing. It's a one thing. Only now, of course, now since we are talking about it, you start to, disengage each petals. And yet, our idea is very crude. The whole reality is and could very well be that each sort of, the part that makes the stem and the part that makes up each of the petals are completely different. The colors come from different causes, condition. The taste, the smell, all of sort of to just a simple, small, relatively small phenomena as a flower. It is a result of billions and billions, countless of different causes and conditions. From the beginning of this world, the material that is invested in this phenomena has to be there. Has to be there. And in Buddhist cosmology, we say, so someone asks, so how does this world begin? So we say, it began from the destruction of other worlds, and they came together in this space, and this world began. Which is only logical. Unless you have a creator God, things cannot pop out of nowhere, Then it should, even now it should happen, but it's not happening. Everything must have a causes and condition. The key backbone of Buddha's teaching. So Buddha says, wreckages of many other worlds came together in the space, and somehow they get to pull together they rub, that creates heat, and they have sort of this quality of moisture in them, and with heat and moisture creates, it's actually very simple, the idea. Heat and moisture creates cloud, and from cloud comes rain, and when it becomes wet, it becomes more and more harder, and so then this one phenomena that you have in front of you now, just like a flower, it causes a condition. There are billions, and it goes back billions and billions, countless of time. Actually, it's right to say countless of time, and so it's not a one phenomena. Each part is different. Each quality is different. For a flower to have a certain smell, it needs, again, another causes and condition within the seed. For a flower to have certain color, it needs, again, causes and condition. Maybe depending on the soil, maybe depending on the weather, water. Of course, and then the person who decides to plant it. Each day when the person is planting, maybe water was given in the morning, afternoon, or evening, depends on that. Everything comes back. And then that depends on the person's mood. That depends on all the people that this person meets every day. Like this, all the food that this person ate. If you really think about it, really, it's a real tantra. It's a real, what do you call it, a net of things that will never end. Yet, we humans, our vision is so poor that we see one thing. We see one thing that came from another thing, which is a seed. Buddha said, no, it's not a one thing. It's a billions of things that is for a moment together, only to go separate ways, which is true. Each petals fall down like this. The taste will be taken by a bee or somebody, somewhere else, and it's then again mixed with something else. Everything like this. Where is it? This, for example, this piece of wood has to come from a tree. Before that, it has to be somewhere where somebody decided to make this. Go back like this. Everything with this. Look at this walls. Look at each of everything, and think about the causes and conditions. You will never find an end. That is extremely important. And that is how actually we Buddhists came to idea that maybe there is no creator God, because there's no functionality of it. There's no functionality. Even if there is a God, what is the God going to do? Everything depends on something else, cause and condition. And that has to be there. Nothing comes miraculously somewhere. So that there is no real functionality. It's not that Buddha didn't like, it's not that Buddha hated Shiva and Vishnu, and he's okay, I'm going to say something and I'm going to kick these people out of my philosophy. Not at all. Because it doesn't fit. There's no place for them. Even if they would be there as a being, which Buddha agrees. Buddha saw them. They requested him to teach, but Buddha looked through them, said, you are not a creator. You did not create me. You did not create anything. Because everything else depends on cause and condition. Extremely important. Why am I saying this now? Remember, I said we see the emptiness now through impermanence. So now look for the actual object or actual self of the object. For example, this piece of wood, what is its ultimate truth, so to speak? What is its ultimate nature? Was it when it was a seed? Was it when it was a sapling or a tree? Was it when it was cut down? Or is it this? Or is it, I don't know, a pile of soil that is, that this will be at the end, like ashes or whatever. You look at, from beginningless of time, this object, this phenomena has been going through so many changes. Now the yogi looks at it and tries to find its true nature. What is this true nature of this piece of wood? What is the true nature of this piece of wood? Very simple. Is it the tree? Is it the seed? Was it when the seed was, I don't know, in the stomach of a bird? Or was it when the seed was on another tree? Or was it when I don't know, during that tree, the previous tree, like that, go back, go back, go back, go back. And now too, this will never end. This will, sort of the continuum of this material have no ending. This will go on to create hundreds and thousands of galaxies and worlds. So says Buddha. And it only makes sense to us too when you think about it. Now, what is the nature of this then? True form. You contemplate like this. Then you kind of, well, I guess I shouldn't be giving you the answers, but what happens is that then first you get a bit confused, like, okay, which one is the true nature? Is it when it is like this, in this shape? Or was it because, or is the true nature before? You know? Or some of you may have this idea, it is the woodness. You understand? Very strange ideas like that. That's good. The stranger your replies become means really good thinking is happening. Good contemplation is happening. You know? And then you go through, what is this woodness? You know, like go back and back and back to really, then you get to a point where you're like, it's not that everything vanishes, it's there, yet you cannot point to any one thing and say, this is it, this is the true, I don't know, wood or whatever, the nature of this piece of wood, this is the true sort of ultimate nature. A yogi meditates like this. Yogi finds nothing else than just the continuum. Now be careful. Continuum, you might think, the continuum is the true nature. Now that's a very tricky concept. There is no such thing as continuum. It's just an idea. Continuum is the illusion that is born when you observe similarities in two different time on the same space. You know, just like the river. You think there is a continuum. There is no continuum actually. Each water is separate. And each water is separate. They're not kind of becoming the next water. No. It's continuing. It's living and dying by itself too. Yet when we look at it, we think yesterday there was a river here. Today there's also a river. Tomorrow I'll see. So it's the continuum. That's again another. This is something we call it mental object. It's a mental object. Name, continuity, like these type of things. These are called mental object because, or like the ideas like a group, a country, a forest. This is a famous traditional example is there is no such thing as a forest out there. Each tree is individual. Yet the mental object is immediately forest. You don't have to think about it. Out of habit comes. So this is called mental object. It's created by the mind. Same things will continue. We have a break, and then I really wish to go more. This is the outer impermanence that teaches the outer emptiness. Then we will also look into the inner impermanence and inner emptiness. The reason why I feel very confident about this is that in no way does it makes you feel like you entered an empty space. You understand? In no way Of course, it reaches the same conclusion, but it doesn't say no I, no knows. It says, you kind of see a lot of continuity. I mean, a lot of phenomena that's coming right one after another, one after another. The subtlest of impermanence is unimaginable. Where Shakyamuni says, when a healthy person, not me today, but a healthy person does this, everything has changed. I think 64 times, 65 times. Everything has changed 65 times in the duration of this. I think with the, what do you call it, nanosecond? What do you call it? Yeah, more than that, no? Actually, if you these days we have cameras that each second can be broken into how many frames? Yeah, each second can be broken into 1,600 frames. That's only limited by today's science. Who knows how far we will go? So each second, at least 1,600 changes happen. So subtle. How are we ever going to, you understand? This is good. Certain distrust of your perception. That's good. And anyway, we have a short break. Please go to your bathroom or whatever. Then we get back, then we try to meditate a little bit. Any question about this? Okay. Break. I think it's like 10 minutes or something, no? Yeah, not so long. Maybe 15 minutes. Huh? 15 minutes, because today we waste a lot of time